In this episode, we're going to discuss Shopify and your shipping profits. Shipping can either make money or lose money on every single order. Customers pay money for shipping in the checkout, or they may not if you offer free shipping. You pay money to the shipping carriers to ship the order out the door, and so there's going to be a resulting profit or loss from every single order. There's also a cost involved in your packaging, the boxes, the fill, the tape, labels, and so on. That's something that you need to consider. There's also default weights in some cases within Shopify. You may have Shopify configured to show a default box with a default weight every single time, even if that's not really the box that you're using. Small losses can really add up, or large gains can really add up. You don't want to charge too much for shipping, and you don't want to charge too little. At the end of the day, it's all about your profit margins, and you really have to be aware of where it's heading on the shipping level. About comparing your shipping amount that's charged and the shipping costs that you're paying to the carriers. Ideally, you're doing it at the order level, and ideally, you're doing it all the time, every day throughout the day, and then rolling it up into some kind of an aggregated summary. The basic components are the amount that you're charging the customer, that's shipping revenue. Let's say you charge them $8 for a shipment or an order. Maybe you pay the carrier $6.75 to ship that order out. There is some packaging costs involved, boxes and so on. Let's say that's 75 cents. So in this scenario, you might have a 50-cent profit on that particular order. You really want to see this at the order level, because if certain orders stand out as a big loss or a big gain, you want to drill into those and understand why was that. And then, like I said, you want to do this on the aggregate, so you can look at this weekly, monthly, and annually to really understand how your shipping profit and loss is tracking. Don't forget the boxes, mailers, tape, labels, inserts, that all cost money. It's good to have an understanding of that. It is pretty tricky to have that integrated at the order level, but if you at least understand most commonly what your boxing costs are, that's a really good number to have as you analyze all of this stuff. It's also good to try to use the least amount of boxing material as possible, because the smaller and lighter these orders are, the less it's going to cost you. So take a look at that. Heavy packaging increases the carrier cost. Oversized packaging, and even if it doesn't seem oversized, a lot of the carriers are looking at every single box in terms of dimensional weight. They're taking a calculation based on length, width, and height. And even if it doesn't seem like a large box, it still might be triggering what's known as a calculated fee on top of it. They call it an oversized packaging fee. So just take a look at that and really understand what your boxing costs are, and try to right size your material for whatever you're shipping. If it's small, non-breakable, and flexible, you might want to think about bags as opposed to boxes, just as an example. The product weights are a really core component to all of this. It's a fundamental. If you don't have the right weight in place at the product level inside of Shopify, you could run into a couple different scenarios. One is if you're charging your shipping to your customers based on the full weight of an order, and those weights are wrong, you might charge too much or too little to that customer. On the other hand, even if you're doing just a flat rate or free shipping or something like that, you're not using weight as a criteria to determine what to charge your clients, your customers, then you might not be submitting the right weights to your carriers. So if you're rate shopping if let's just say you call it standard shipping, and they pay you a fixed amount, say $8, on the back end, you want to choose the carrier that's the least expensive yet still reliable. But if you're reporting an incorrect weight for that order to the carrier, you're going to get the wrong amount, and you're either going to get overcharged or undercharged for that. So it really is imperative to have a good, accurate weight in place in Shopify at the product level for every single product. So it's not rocket science. It's take a little scale or a big scale depending on your products, and just weigh every single one of them and just input that into the field in Shopify that's just called weight. In terms of what the customer sees in the shopping cart, after trying kind of all the different models for this. What I've landed on, my favorite approach, is a very basic approach with just some very basic single words, like, for example, standard and expedited. You're in the cart, you got a bunch of stuff in your shopping cart, and that's what you would see as your shipping options. Could just be the word standard, 5-7 business days, and whatever the price you're charging people, call it $5. Maybe also there's an expedited option, 2 to 3 business days. Behind the scenes, you're going to use something like a second day service, and that's it. I prefer that over showing the literal carriers and methods, like, say, USPS Ground Advantage, UPS Ground, just because it can get a little bit confusing to people, and certain people may have preconceived notions about particular carriers. They're all pretty good. FedEx, UPS, USPS, they're going to get the package to the end destination almost every single time in good shape. I want to be able to make a decision on the back end surrounding who I'm going to use and what method that gives me the best rate and the best quality service. Most customers don't care a whole lot about the carrier. They just want to see the price and kind of at least an estimate of the time frame. So to me, that's the preferred option. If you do free shipping, same concept. It would literally just say free shipping, maybe 5 to 7 business days. But I like to keep it very simple. I also tend to not use the calculated rates. In Shopify, you are able to pick a carrier and a method, say USPS Ground Advantage. That's literally what the customer would see in the cart, and then it would be an actual rate for that, the cost based on their location. You could even put a handling fee in there additionally that the customer doesn't see. It would just be blended in. Again, not a fan of that. It's confusing for customers to see that much detail surrounding the name and the name of the carrier and the method of that shipment. But also the dollar amounts are going to be kind of odd. It might say like $7.13. It gets even worse if you're using multiple carriers and they have competing products and there's just a 20 cent or 50 cent difference. Kind of becomes a little bit chaotic in the shopping cart, and it might add some friction to your conversion rate in the shopping cart. So again, my preferred method is very simple. The word standard, maybe the word expedited. Might take some time to analyze your actual shipping costs to understand what you should be charging to the customer. But ideally, you're arriving at, I call it a win some, lose some, where generally you're winning a little bit of money, making a little bit of profit, and maybe you're coming out ahead 5, 10%, something like that on your shipping margins. I would recommend reviewing your shipping the same way you review sales. You're probably watching your sales, you're watching your revenue, maybe product level, volume, maybe gross margin, order count, things like that. Should be doing the same thing for your shipping because it is a profit and loss, scenario there. You're collecting money from customers or not. If you're doing free shipping, you're paying money out to the shipping carriers, and there's going to be a net profit or loss from that. And it's really important to track that. Sometimes you can make very small adjustments that have huge impact on your bottom line, and so you got to keep an eye on it. Additionally, things change. Carriers are famous for raising their rates, particularly right after the first of the year. So you really want to be aware of those and ideally pick up on those changes pretty quickly so you can make adjustments before you start seeing more severe losses than you thought were happening. Well, all this might feel a little overwhelming if you have a lot of order volume, especially. Maybe start with your most recent 20 orders. Just go into each one of them. There are reports inside of Shopify. Go to analytics and reports, and you'll be able to find some order level reports that also include some fields regarding your shipping cost, carrier, and so on, and probably even weight. Pull that data and run an analysis on it and understand what your profit and loss looks like, at least over your last 20 orders. Depending on how that looks, maybe go further back. The last 100 orders. My recommendation would be to do it all the time, continuously. For some of our clients, we have built systems just like that. We call them shipping dashboards. And about once a week, we could be once a month, you do a data dump of those reports from Shopify, do some merging inside of Google Sheets, and it all rolls up to a variety of summaries that show what your profit and loss is looking like for any date range, for any carrier, for any method, and so on. It's really good to know that. It will be a good sleep well at night policy to understand that you're not bleeding money on shipping or making too much. If you're making too much on shipping, you might be giving up a little conversion rate in the shopping cart. Well, I hope this was useful. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks.